Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Movie Night here on the Anorax Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Samee Ramirez, and today we are in full Loki, Marvel, Black Widow swing. We are talking about Thor Ragnarok, one of my favorite of the MCU. I'm excited to dive into that today with my guest, Dom Martino. Dom, how you doing?
Samee, I am ready to talk about this. I asked for this, right? This is a special request made by me. For a film that I haven't particularly necessarily enjoyed all that much. But I wanted to dive into it just so you can maybe give me some new perspective. And, you know, I can maybe rewatch it and hopefully come out a better man and actually finally enjoy this film because, like I said, I mean, you know, everybody like puts this at such a high point in their like Marvel list. I mean, this is typically a top 5 movie when it comes to the MCU for people.
It's in my top 5.
Yeah, I just never got it, but we'll see. We'll talk about it again.
Yeah, I kind of just want to dive in. So you know our basic thoughts on it. This is probably, I still put Infinity War and Endgame, I think, are tied for 1 and 2. But then right after that, it's Thor Ragnarok and the first Guardians for me. Those are my top 4 favorite Marvel films. So I am obsessed with this movie. I think obviously written and directed by Taika Waititi, his first time in the MCU. The thing about this movie is that I think it really did everything perfectly. When this movie came out, Thor was in a very kind of awkward position where no one really knew, I think, what to do about him. We all knew that he had great, like, the people loved him, will turn out for his movies, but the movies themselves just weren't that great critically and audience wise.
True. And
then Ragnarok comes out and suddenly Thor is the most important Avenger ever.
Right.
And I love Cate Blanchett in this movie. I think Hela is one of the best MCU villains. I can talk about just her for the next hour. She is phenomenal. I do, on upon second watch, on this last rewatch, there is some pacing issues. I'll give you that sometimes it does feel like we're going really heavy on comedy right now, so everything needs to stop. Or sometimes like we don't really know where to place certain events, so they're kind of shoved in there various places. That's what I mean by pacing issues. But other than that, I still love this movie so much.
Okay.
All right, Dom, give your overall.
All right. Oh shit! Dropping stuff over here, folks. Sorry about that. I got my bourbon ready to talk about this.
Hell yeah! Oh no! Oh no!
He's pulling out the bourbon, folks. He's pulling out the
Holy shit,
bourbon.
Man! This is getting real. All right.
Okay. All right. Let me switch this around for a second. We'll get into it.
Here, we'll do cheers of the water bottle.
Cheers.
To Taika Waititi. Am I right?
101 proof, baby. 101. All right.
Holy shit.
No, listen. I love Taika Waititi. You know this. When it comes to What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People,
Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit is probably my favorite of his so far. I mean,
honestly, same. I think Jojo Rabbit's probably my favorite.
Right. Guys, really, he's a revolution, man. I mean, really, he is. I mean, he really is a filmmaker. I so happy we have him in the industry, and I think he's one of the funniest people that I've ever heard talk, and just I love his style, and I love the way he crafts movies, and I think he's got an amazing eye behind the camera. So that said, let me start.
Also, not written. This movie not written by Taika Waititi. I double checked.
Fair enough.
It's not a screenwriter. There you go.
Fair enough.
Continue.
But, yeah, he gets final say though. You know the comedy was
true. Yeah. I just wanted to be correct.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like I'm still pretty sure that the final say was him, and I know that like 70% of this movie was improv, which was a Taika decision. I think that, you know, the script he probably got was bullet points, and he was like, all right, we're going to change a lot of that, though. But, you know, listen, that's because his style's all over it. And that's one thing I will say. That's my first positive on this is the fact that it does have style. This movie definitely 100% from beginning to end has style, and it's Taika style. And, you know, the thing is this film is so visually beautiful. When it comes to visually stunning MCU films,
oh my gosh,
this goes near the top in that way. I still have problems with this movie. I think that I'm at a place with this after watching it today where I don't dislike this movie necessarily. I don't really like this movie necessarily. I'm just very mixed on it. And I don't know. I have thoughts that a lot of these, when we dive in a little bit more, you'll see there are a lot of positives. I do have a lot of great things to say about the film. You'll see. But then there's also a lot of negative things to say about the movie. Yeah. And it's like, and you know, talking with you today, I'm hoping to gain some new perspective and like the way that you see these things, because and it doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna like magically be convinced by the end of the conversation, but it's like maybe the next time I put this thing on, I'll think about what Samee was saying. And sometimes when I hear what people love about something, it inspires me to rewatch them, and like at least try to look at it from a different angle. But this movie, for some reason, and I hate myself for not loving it as much as everybody else because I want to so badly. That's the thing, and this is a lot of the reason I wanted to do this episode today with this movie in particular, even though it's one I'm not necessarily fond of, is because I really do get like upset with myself that I do not like this as much as a lot of other people, and I want to know.
If you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, but that's I can't figure out why. It's you know what it is? It's like every time I watch it, I almost feel like I'm missing something that everybody else is catching. And it's like, I know maybe if it clicks, you know, I'll get there. And you know, I feel like a lot of it is the fact that like I just feel like Taika Waititi's style does not entirely mix with the MCU, and I don't know why that is. You know, and it makes me very nervous for his Star Wars film coming out, and you know, I hope that you know that it's, you know, a lot better than this was for me. But then there's the other side of it where I've told you this story before. I won't dive into all the details. Where I watched this movie in the theater, and somebody I really didn't like sat about 10-12 rows ahead of me and kept looking back at me and commenting to me in the middle of the theater, yelling over, you know, it was a packed theater, and just that was a traumatizing experience. And his kids were running all the way around, and like suddenly I'm associated with this man who everybody fucking hates because his kids are running around the theater. There's that aspect to it too. So keep that in mind, folks. Fair. Because like maybe every time I watch it, I'm just subconsciously getting flashbacks to that moment in my life, and it's very traumatizing, and it's not the way I like to see movies. But listen, I tried to watch it today. I watched it in glorious 4K for the first time on Disney Plus. It looks fucking great. Looks better than ever, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So let's talk. I did take notes today though, because I wanted to point the things out to you in particular that I don't like, and just so you see where I'm coming from, hopefully, and then hopefully you can like be like, no, Dom, you're looking at this all wrong. This is what you're supposed to be seeing in this scene. This is what I love about it. Yeah. Go check it out again there, Jack. All right, what we got?
I'm excited. All right. Also, I do apologize. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize for the blowing of the nose.
She's got the vid.
That being said, I know we got the suds. We're not feeling good. You know that the Bo Burnham song, "Shit"? Like, wake up at 11:30, feeling like a bag of shit. That's been me all day, me all day today. Anyway, someone who's not feeling like shit, Thor Odinson. So I just want to start with the opening scene, because I love this opening scene. I think it's done so wonderfully. I think the beginning scene is really kind of what I feel like for people like you, like I feel like you like the beginning scene at least, right? So I feel like that's at least kind of what we wanted the rest of the movie to be. I feel like that scene really gets a good balance of the dramatic and getting necessary like Marvel drama moments, but also being lighthearted with it.
I'll be honest.
I think at least.
Yes and no.
Yeah. Okay.
So when he starts talking to what's his ass?
Oh, the guy, Ragnarok guy. Oh my god, I don't know his name. Yeah.
Either way. And when he goes,
you know who I mean.
That joke where he's like, "Son of a bitch," like when you don't expect him to say that. I laughed in the theater, and I laughed again this time. Because
so good, yeah.
For some reason, I forget that he says that every time I watch this movie, and then every time I hear it, it surprises me. So I'll give Taika that one, because that was really, really great. It always catches me off guard in the best way. Here's my problems with the opening. I found that, honestly, the editing and the action, and this is the only scene that has this, by the way, as far as the action sequences go, because the rest are fucking great. So don't get me wrong, I love the action in this movie. It's really good. But this opening one, for some reason, I noticed that the editing was very sloppy and chopped up. It felt very sloppy to me. Yeah, because there was just so many. I couldn't navigate what the camera was doing during the action. It was like there was times where it was like zooming in on Thor, and then it would quickly snap to like a wide, and then quickly snap like somewhat close to Thor, and it would do that like all the time. And I found that to be so sloppy, and I couldn't really get on board with it. But like the humor here, I actually don't mind. Funny enough, like the humor here is actually not bad. That's the part that like keeps the scene good, but like I just found it to be like maybe one of the it's the weakest action scene in the movie, and I just found a lot of that to be due to the editing. But because the rest of the action scenes in the movie are great, I guess I can kind of forgive it, but either way, I don't love this scene, honestly. I think there was parts of the execution that could have been a little bit better, but
interesting. All right.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I think it's fine. Yeah.
Right.
It's a fine opening.
Yeah. I'm a simple person. The second that song starts going, and I love the shot of when you're following the hammer, just like going through people.
Yeah. Oh, I like the immigrant song. I do like.
That's phenomenal.
It's incorporated better. It's incorporated better later, but we'll get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like the second time a lot better, but I still love it in this opening.
Yeah, and maybe that was another one of my issues is the fact that like. I feel like they maybe led in too quickly with the immigrant song. I feel like maybe he could have like used a different one for this action sequence. It just felt like a little bit less variety to me. But either way, we can. It's a small nitpick right there.
Yeah,
because I love the song anyway, so it doesn't bother me.
And it works so good.
Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, no, I feel that I wouldn't have been mad if it would have been a different song.
Yeah, it would have created a little bit more variety. I feel like.
Yeah. So after this, then we get introductions to Scourge by Carl Urban, who literally every time I see him, I just see Billy the Butcher from The Boys. Like I didn't realize how synonymous my brain had him and that character, but the moment I saw him, I was like, Billy Butcher, when's season 3 coming?
If you don't mind, because this kind of goes into my problems with the editing and the opening again, is the fact that so then they randomly just throw in that quick Carl Urban scene with the shake weight, and like none of it's funny to me. By the way, I don't think any of that stuff works at all. I think that all fell very flat, and then like so he does that whole like shake weight joke, which is not good. I thought that was awful.
I'm okay with the whole like this is Dez and Stroy together they destroy because it's paid off later.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that, but again, it goes too far with
it didn't need to randomly pop up right in the middle of the action sequence, and like it really didn't. I mean, that mattered in a way. Don't get me wrong, like you said, it paid off later, but like it was just like it wasn't necessary to put where it was placed, and then like it just quickly cut right back to the action, and then like next thing you know, it's like Thor's, calling up there, and it's like, why do we care? I love Carl Urban, by the way. This is not a statement on him.
No, same.
It's just in general of this character that he's playing. It's like, I don't know why they wanted to make such a push. I have a point to make about this later too, but I don't know why Taika wanted to push this character so much. Like it just. Yeah. But anyway, I know Carl Urban's cool and all that, but this is not one. This is not some of his best work in my opinion.
I agree.
But anyway, you continue.
Oh no, yeah, I totally agree. I think that like shake weight moment, we don't need it again. Like we can understand, and because I don't know, he feels almost like a MacGuffin a little bit to be like, well, we need someone on Asgard to be involved with Hela, and we need someone to do this thing at the end, so we just made this character.
And even though like the Des and Troy thing came back like later on in the movie, it just in the moment because of its execution, it just really feels like a really bad joke. It feels like a joke that Taika thought was funnier than it was, honestly.
Right.
And it didn't work for me. That stuff fell just incredibly flat. And I think that it immediately puts a bad taste in my mouth for this movie because it was such a strikingly random shot, in my opinion, and a random placement of a shot. But
in the middle of, for me, a great opening action scene too. Just random, like we were gonna stop for 5 minutes to watch Carl Urban play with a shake weight.
Don't get me wrong, like I like the setting and the aesthetic of the action scene. It's just the editing to me felt sloppy. I was kind of like, whoa, Taika, this is not your best work, because it really to me was like it pales in comparison to the rest of the action in this movie, for sure.
True.
Yeah,
I agree with you there.
It could have been better. Could have been better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So then after this, we get into some Loki stuff when Thor goes back to Asgard. And Loki has been posing as Odin, making them make statues of him and plays, and we have the great Matt Damon cameo. I really like all of this, and I like also how it accumulates with the whole of how
Okay.
like Thor figures it out and then has the whole thing with the hammer. I love all of that. And how do you feel about this section?
I mean, it's not bad.
Mm.
Um, it's I'm really trying to like, because honestly, it's not bad. Like,
uh,
I don't want to be like that guy that's like, oh, it was supposed to do this, because okay, but my problem is this: Thor: The Dark World. The
mm,
one great thing that happened in that movie, was the I'm sorry, Odin, when the Odin
yeah.
twist, the twist in the post credits or whatever.
Yes.
That was the one great thing about Dark World.
Mm.
And it felt like they just in this movie, when it finally gets followed up. I know I'm frozen, I'll fix that.
Oh.
When it finally got followed up in this film, it felt like it just came and went. And that was kind of an issue in a way.
Mm.
That said, I can honestly see Taika being like, okay, those movies weren't that great anyway, so I just want to follow up on this really quick and get over it.
Right.
So I'm kind of cool with it. You know what I mean? And on the same hand, because like I see where he was going, but it just so happened that it was like the one great thing in Dark World that he just wanted to like skip over, it seemed like, really quickly, rather than, spending just a little bit more time on it. But I can see why he just wanted to move past it and just like get
Mm.
on with the story that he wanted to tell. So this is one of the, not gonna say better scenes in the movie, but it's a scene that I'm like, I understand it, I'm cool with it. And then when it comes down to the Matt Damon cameo, I love Matt Damon. That felt a bit cheap. I gotta be honest with you. It felt like a cheap like
Fair.
thing, because I think the reason it felt cheap to me is because nothing about this movie so far has hooked me. And it
Mm.
feels like, because he throws Matt Damon in there, it just feels like it's expected to
Right.
make me go, oh, Matt Damon, now this movie's
I get
great.
that. Yeah.
Not that I mind Matt Damon being in the movie, but if he could have done it maybe later somewhere where like I was already hooked into the film and like I was already on board with everything that was going on,
Mm.
it just felt like a cheap way to try to hook people who weren't, because nothing in the movie hooks you yet, and it just felt like a cheap way for people to be like, now I'm so much more on board with this movie because Matt Damon's in there. And so like I just watched it today and was like, nah, pass. I don't need this
Yeah.
cameo right now. It's fine. I can live without it. It just felt cheap, but I don't hate the scene. I don't hate it. It's fine.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, that's totally fair. I get that. I really liked it. I appreciate it. I had a good laugh. But again, I was on board from that first scene.
Exactly.
It was totally in there.
Exactly. It would
So
hit you
yeah.
differently. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me see. So after this, we have Loki's been revealed as to pretending to be Odin, and they go and try to find him, and Doctor Strange shows up, and they get taken to the, what is it, the
Thank God.
Sanctum Sanctorum, right? That's what it's
Yeah.
called, the secret sanctum, whatever
Yeah.
it is. And I also, man, I also love this scene. This is gonna be a repeating thing. Like, I just love this scene. I love Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. I love seeing him and Thor together. I worked at a movie theater when the first Doctor Strange came out, and I watched those two end credit scenes about 500 billion times. And so I had big hype for that because I was, the end credit scene of Doctor Strange. So I was just totally like satisfied and loved this moment they got on the Doctor Strange parts.
Yeah, okay, so before we actually go to Strange, I have a big problem with the scene right before, because
Go for it.
So
The Shady Acres one?
No.
Oh, the one
So
before.
they're standing in the city. And these girls come up to him.
Yes.
And they want to take a picture with him.
Yes.
Loki, who wanted to destroy the world, but a couple years prior, is standing right there as well. There. And the girls don't comment on that.
That is very true. That's so funny.
And I've heard this excuse where people are like, they don't know what Loki looks like, and I'm like, but they know who Jane is? Because that's the thing they ask him about, is Jane.
How
So
would you How would you know all about Thor and you know about Jane and you just never learned who Loki was? Nuh-uh.
so I have a problem with that.
Yeah,
Then
that's fair.
Strange gets him, and
Hmm.
I love seeing Doctor Strange, and we knew it was coming because of the post credit in Strange, and I
Hmm.
was so happy to see him, and I was like, okay, here we go, and I loved watching the scene today. I
Yeah.
think it's probably one of the best parts of the movie is Strange, as far as
Hmm.
like entertainment value goes, and I think it's hilarious. I think all the jokes play incredibly well in the scene. But my problem again with Strange now is its plot convenience. He's
Right.
literally there to,
To get them to Odin.
and it's
Yeah.
like, why does it, like, they could have used him in such a better way, in my opinion, and he just
Right.
feels like he's there for like plot convenience, and in a lot of ways it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get that
Yeah.
Strange has the abilities to find his dad, but
Hmm.
it's like, this is what you put him in here for, you know
Right.
and it just felt like it was like, yeah, let's just do this quick funny Strange scene, as entertaining as it is, as much as I love seeing Strange in the thing, because
Hmm.
he's one of my favorite MCU characters, so as a fan I'm eating it up, but
Yeah.
it feels like plot convenience and fan service, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't know,
I feel like I'm trying to think maybe in retrospect because I mean I have theories that I think Loki is going to be in Multiverse of Madness.
Okay,
So maybe in retrospect we'll look back and be like, "Oh, they were setting up that thing."
I hope so,
That's how
because
I'll justify it.
Feige's great at that shit, and I hope
Yeah.
he, does something like that for me.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, no,
mean,
for sure.
I guarantee there's going to be something down the line that makes me go back and watch this. If not this conversation, there will
Hmm.
be a movie or TV show that makes me go back and watch this movie and makes me
Yeah.
love it, because it's like, well, damn, Ragnarok had a lot of importance in it, didn't it? Feige will
Right.
come up with something, to make this
Uh-huh.
one feel more significant, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the Age of Ultron WandaVision effect,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see, so after this we get to they do find Odin on his deathbed basically, and I always love this scene. It also this scene is brought up again in the Loki series of when Odin's like, "I love you, my sons," and Loki's just so taken aback, like
Yeah.
that. I don't get like emotional, but like it takes me aback a little bit every time. I'm like, he
Mm,
said sons. So I mean, I love this, and I love how he just kind of fades away and
right.
it gives them the information about Hela a little bit and then kind of fades away. Like I found that to be kind of epic the way that went down.
Yeah, yeah. I do love this scene a lot. I
Mhm.
love Anthony Hopkins in it, and I like the
Yeah.
dynamic between Thor, Loki, and Odin. Here, and
Mhm.
it's like, um, it's such a dysfunctional family. So
Yeah.
to see them have a
To say
moment
the
like
least.
this is really touching. You know what I mean? It really adds a whole new layer to that, and I think that this is one of the really phenomenal additions that Taika added to this film, was the
Mhm.
Thor, Odin, Loki scene here. I think it's
Totally.
great. I think it's firing on all cylinders. It's awesome when I watch it, and then you get our introduction to Hela right here too, which I'll talk about
Yes.
her in a sec. But here's my problem.
Yes.
There's always a but, I know, but like, in all honesty, this, I have a genuine issue, and especially when I was watching it today, I was like, because I always wondered, like, because I always loved the scene, but I always knew there was something wrong when I was watching it. And here's my problem:
Right.
this could have been, this movie could have been improved so much if you added an extra 20 minutes just to have this whole journey to getting to this point,
Right.
because it feels like it's supposed to be tacked on at the end of
Hmm.
this like glorious journey to finding their father, and it
Right.
feels like, because the rest of the movie rushed through that in
Hmm.
terms of its pacing,
Yeah.
I as much as I loved watching the scene, and as great as I thought the acting was and everything works in it, I wish we had gotten more fleshed out getting to that point, rather than just having the quick, like, Strange thing happen and then boom, we're there. And that's what
Right.
bothers me every time I watch the scene, is it feels like it's paying off absolutely nothing except for stuff we'd seen prior. But it feels like I wish there was more of a struggle to find Odin in the film or something, or like a whole journey. It just would have felt like that much more emotional when we got there, I feel like. And
Hmm.
to me, like, again, it's a scene that works, but I wish everything before it, helped pay it off a little bit more, and that's kind of my issue when I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the movie could have been improved by a long shot, in my opinion. So.
No, yeah, I agree. I think there could have been a lot more about trying to find Odin, because it does kind of feel a bit rushed compared to the rest of the movie. That it's just like real quick. We needed help from Doctor Strange, and we got it. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're on to Hela.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that one. I'll give you that one. Speaking of Hela, though, next she shows up, smashes Mjolnir in her bare hand,
mm-hmm.
tells them to kneel, and basically gets them thrown into Sakaar. I love this whole scene. I love Cate Blanchett. I think Hela is one of the best MCU villains. She's so I realized watching it this time that she reads kind of like a Disney villain to me, and I think that's why I love her. Like, she is just pure evil and chaos. She just gets off on causing chaos. That's very like Ursula, Jafar, Scar to me. And I think that's why I like her. She's just pure evil. There's no redeeming thing. She is just the goddess of death, and we have to defeat her. I love that. I don't always need my villains to be redeemed all the time.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I like sometimes when they're just pure evil.
Yeah. I can 100% agree. I think that Hela is one of the better villains in the entire MCU. I think Cate Blanchett is incredible in the role. By the way, I think she is like one of the big highlights of this movie, and it's one of the things that I'm very positive on is this performance by Cate Blanchett. Not that Cate Blanchett could ever do a bad job, but I'm just saying that she gave a real good performance. She went above and beyond to give a better performance. She showed
up to work that day.
Yes, for sure, and it pays off in this movie. This is one of the things that really pay off in this movie is the Hela concept, and so. I don't really have a butt when it comes to Hela herself or as far as Cate Blanchett's performance. But my problem is she gets back to Asgard.
I was like, but
do the Joe Rogan thing. But where he does that in his stand-up, it's great. Anyway, but so she gets back to Asgard and then she recruits Scourge. That's where I was lost.
Of all the people there, we have Zachary Levi, warrior guy. We have the other two warrior guys. I've never learned their name. He's always just been Zachary Levi,
this guy should have been wasted fucking back in '82. He really sucks. This character. I love Karl Urban, and I understand the want to incorporate him in the movie, but sometimes you just got to know when to cut off certain things, and this is one of those bits that just it had to go, in my opinion. I don't know why she recruited him initially. Honestly, and if it throws off some of the concepts with Hela, but luckily, I feel with the Hela stuff, the positives almost outweigh the bad with the Karl Urban aspect of it, because she is that damn good in the movie. So I'm not insanely bothered by it, but it was just a story inconsistency where I'm I feel she would have just wasted that fool, I don't know why he would.
What about him, right? There are 3 Asgardian warriors that you just wasted, you pick the kind of schlubby guy?
Yeah.
Hela, really?
I mean, honestly, Karl Urban, I love you. Do more seasons of The Boys. I'm here for it, but listen, I
can't wait for the next season of The Boys. Get that out soon. We love you.
I just feel like he overstayed his welcome in this character, and it was just I didn't understand it. I was watching this today, and I'm like, why? I know that it bothers me every time I watch it. It's why Scourge? Why did she recruit him? And she didn't need to recruit anybody. That's the other thing. Look at her. She didn't really need to recruit anybody. She's just so badass.
That's what I mean. He's more of a MacGuffin type character. We needed that. We knew we wanted someone to do this cool thing at the end, so we wrote a whole character for that moment to happen.
He's such a jackass and a buffoon. It's just I don't understand why she wanted him, but
you know what, thinking about it though, it kind of checks out with my Disney villain analogy, because all of the Disney villains sidekicks are buffoons.
Maybe that's what he was
checks
going
out.
For.
Maybe that's what he's going for.
I don't know. If he didn't introduce Karl Urban in such the buffoonery way though, in such buffoonery to where it was
with a shake weight,
he immediately irritated me. Like, if maybe that wasn't there, I might have been able to jump on board a little bit better. But, like, because I was already irritated by this character. Like, I could get on board with her, like, coming to Asgard, recruiting somebody who looks super badass, and then he ends up being a buffoon. But because, as the audience member, I already know.
We already know, right.
It's that he's already irritating. It's like, that is like where I draw the line. It's like, so Taika, you want us to get on board with the fact that she's recruiting this guy. First of all, it doesn't add any stakes, because it's like, it really doesn't. It's almost pointless when it comes to the stakes of the film, because it's like, he looks super badass, but he's not badass, you know. So you're adding those stakes, and over what? A wasted joke, you know, and that you wanted to put in the beginning, and that's kind of irritating to me. He wasted a joke just to, you know, and he could have taken that joke out of there completely to make him the buffoon, and we would have felt like this scene would have been enhanced so much more. We'd have felt like, oh shit, she's getting like the hardest motherfucker there, you know what I mean? And you could have done that, and I would have felt like, oh man,
and especially too with the fact of how like he can't bring himself to actually execute any of the Asgardians. That would be so much more impactful if he was this like great warrior, but just could not kill his own no matter what, you know.
Right. It's just, I would have felt much better, you know what I mean?
I like that a lot more. Yeah,
and you're right, like later on when it's like it ends up just becoming, I don't want to say completely pointless, because like you said, he kind of spared some lives, but on the same hand, it was like you didn't need, there was about a million other routes you maybe could have gone. I felt like,
no, yeah, for sure. I will say the one of my favorite lines of the whole movie that I'm like, could be said with anybody, but when Hela's like, so the great kings had an executioner, not only to execute people, but to execute their vision. And it's just the way she says it is like, that's what I mean. Like, it was so like Jafar to me, the way she said it, just like pure evil, like, we don't give a shit. We're just being evil out here.
Her acting is good. Her writing is great. I mean, it's really done. Her character is done really well as far as her dialogue and everything goes. And I love watching her on screen. Every time she's on, I get excited because she's one of the better parts.
Let me see. So next we move into, I think I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but so we go to Sakaar after this. We find out, and Thor gets taken by Valkyrie, who I love, by the way. I think Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie is incredible. And then he gets taken to the Grand Master, of course, Jeff Goldblum, who is killing it. And then we find out Loki is there as well, and that he needs to fight the champion, the Grand Master's champion, which is one thing I will say. I said this watching it last night too, that I will always just be a little bit mad that they showed that the champion is the Hulk in the trailer. I'll just be always a little bit mad, because if we didn't know that in the theater, oh my god, I would have like peed myself. I would have been so excited if just randomly in the movie it's the Hulk. But because we all saw the trailer and we all knew it wasn't as impactful. I will still be mad about that.
Right. I try not to dock movies for their marketing, because I know the filmmakers behind them typically have nothing to do with the marketing. And so it's like, it's really like, I really try to take that aspect out of there, as much as I agree with your point. When it comes to critiquing a film, I really do try to take the marketing out of it, because I know filmmakers really have nothing to do with it, and it's unfortunate that
and the moment works really well. Like if you don't know that that's the Hulk, that moment kills. I bet,
because if it's up to like Taika Waititi, if you think about it, like he doesn't want any of this to be spoiled, you know, or any of this to be shown. He probably just wants the whole thing to be a surprise, you know. And it's like, but he understands that, you know, part of the business is marketing, and you know, they're gonna do that. They're gonna cut together a trailer whatever way they think is gonna sell tickets at the end of the day, and the Hulk does sell tickets. So I can't blame the business either, because it's like, well, even though it would have been a better moment in general, you know, had we not been.
Plus there's like there's some cool moments with the Hulk too that I feel like they really wanted to be in that trailer, and they were like, we just have to show his entrance moment then for the rest of it to make sense.
I would have been surprised as hell though had they not shown that in the trailer. Anyway, so we're talking about the Valkyrie stuff though, right? And then her taking him to
Valkyrie and Grandmaster.
What is this? Sakaar?
Sakaar.
It's
called. Yes.
Okay, so then
everything before Hulk fight.
Okay, so I'm in 100% agreement with you that I love Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. I think she's awesome in the role. Couldn't think of better casting for the character. It was really
Yeah,
great.
me neither.
So for sure, loved it. My problem with a lot of the character introductions in this movie in general, and even Hella's, is they all just feel very abrupt for some reason. I don't know why that they do. They all just kind of feel like we're coming out of nowhere. I don't know if that was a conscious effort. I kind of feel like it was, but it didn't work for me. I would have liked maybe just a little more pretext to a lot of the character introductions in this film for sure. I'm not a screenwriter. I don't know how you do that, but either way, like, I think that there was,
as a viewer, you felt it.
Yeah, I just kind of felt it in terms of like, I was like, everybody just seems like to be introduced so randomly.
Fair.
It just, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like a lot of the, like, maybe it's because like I'm not like one of the hardcore comic readers for this stuff too, because like a lot of the comic readers are going to see these characters and be like, yeah, you know, and that's great. That's great for them. But when you adapt something to film, you need to give the audience a little bit more than just what, you know, here they are. And later on, like, a lot of these guys do get fleshed out in the movie, don't get me wrong. I just feel like for me to have some sort of like excitement or payoff to a lot of their introductions, I would like to personally just have a little bit more pretext to the introductions themselves. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I stood on that. But I love her in the role. I have no quarrels with her, Tessa Thompson herself. I even thought the laugh where she fell off the thing because she was so drunk was funny. That was a good laugh. It works. But then we get over to Sakaar. I know why that name throws me off. I think of Tia Sakaar from Star Wars Rebels. But anyway. So yeah, sorry. So I lost my train of thought for a sec. But when you get to Sakaar, first of all, the Willy Wonka gag is hilarious. It's great. That's a great gag. I'm so good with that being in there. Jeff Goldblum in this movie to me is very weak, though.
Interesting.
I do not like this. And here's why. Okay. When I first watched this movie, I didn't necessarily have a problem with it. And I think a lot of that was because of the marketing. I knew he was going to be in there. And to be honest with you, I have a problem with most of modern Jeff Goldblum performances. And here's why. Watch Jurassic Park and tell me that he's not given a performance. You know, like, he's trying really, really hard when you go back and watch something like Jurassic Park or The Fly or what have you. In movies nowadays with Jeff Goldblum, he's just being Jeff Goldblum. And it just feels like it's...
I think that started here, though. I think.
Maybe. Either way,
that's why I like it.
It's starting to become cheap, and it's feeling incredibly, like, weak to me. Because, like, I know he's capable of, like, giving a better performance, and I feel like this is a character that almost needed a little bit more. Like, he... Don't get me wrong, Jeff Goldblum is, like, a good choice in terms of being eccentric. But you can't... It felt
there's
like
something left to be desired.
It just felt like he took this job for a check. And that was my problem with his performance in the role, is it felt like a paycheck job to him. I don't think he really cared about this like he has some of his past roles. And I feel like that about a lot of his movies now. I love Jeff Goldblum for a lot of different reasons, and I like his persona in real life, and I think it's hilarious that he's as eccentric as he is and all that. And it's not that this is, like, extremely bad. He's got a natural charisma about him that kind of works here, but I'm saying if we're going to really compare this to what Jeff Goldblum is actually capable of in terms of performing, this is, like, pretty weak when it comes to him. And I want more from the actors that they hire in the MCU. I don't want them to hire actors because, oh, he's just going to be Jeff Goldblum. And like, I feel like Chris Pratt's starting to do that now with his career. You know, like, luckily, like, Star-Lord was their first thing with him, but, like, where he started doing that. But, like, Jeff Goldblum is just, I don't know, man. It's like, maybe, like, in as far as movies go, this is the first time he was Jeff Goldblum, but before this movie even came out, we know the Jeff Goldblum persona. So to me, it's like it really felt like he was half-assing this role, this performance, and he could have just added so much more life to it that I felt like just wasn't there. Like, the makeup and the hair was all there, you know, and that looked good. You know, he looks good in the role, but he doesn't do everything that he doesn't give everything he was capable of giving to it. And I think that makes the scenes fall a little bit flat for me with him. The dialogue is fine too. I mean, with him too. It's not a dialogue thing or anything like that. It's genuinely the fact that he seems very bored compared to some of the other cast members in this movie, and that's why I had a problem with it. But so the Hulk. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Love the Hulk scene. Think the battle's great. The Loki stuff is so good when he's
that was really
Loki,
good. Yeah,
you see who this is, and Loki just has that look on his face. And then the see how it feels part was great when he's slamming Thor to the ground, and I laugh so hard when Loki gets up and like gets so excited over that. But before this, there's some really good stuff too. So I took notes on this. These are some really good positives here. Korg is awesome.
We love Korg. Oh my gosh.
First of all, one of the best character introductions. Now, sure, you could say, well, that was kind of an abrupt one, too. But the difference with Korg is he's so damn likable from the beginning, and the way that Taika plays him is just so good. Like, Taika voices this character incredibly funny, incredibly well. All the jokes land. I love the new Doug thing. I thought that was hilarious.
Another day, another Doug.
Yes, the new Doug thing was awesome. And, you know, I love his whole, what do you call that? Not persona, but, like, voice inflections that he gives to, like, Taika's a madman in a great way when it comes to voicing character, voice work, or acting in general. Like, he knows how to add some comedy, and it's almost like it's the life that I was missing from Jeff Goldblum that was put into Korg by Taika, you know. And I really, really loved Korg from the beginning, and I think he's just a likable companion, you know what I mean? He's simple, and you just don't need much more from Korg. You know, it's like he was just that likable from the beginning of his introduction. Love that character. So that was really great. But then you also get the great Loki and Thor conversation, which I also think is a very big positive here, because
the one where he's throwing rocks at him.
Yes,
that one you're talking about.
It was funny, but like it also there was some emotional stuff here too, and it was great because this is one of the most human moments between the two of them that we've ever had, and Loki is like the logical thinker in this situation, and that's what's so like interesting about the dynamic that Taika set up. Here's a nitpick I have though, just a nitpick, okay, about this whole Sakaar plotline. Thor, the God of Thunder, can't jump his ass off that planet. We're talking about the guy that came from Asgard and just flew down to Earth. Remember that in Avengers?
Right. He can't. I guess because he doesn't have Mjolnir anymore. I'm sure is the answer Taika would give us. Be like, well, he doesn't have the hammer anymore. He'd give us too, but he knew how to fly with the hammer.
But I gotta say, I find it embarrassing that that's all he has, because like, I think that there's a better way to maybe explain like why he's sticking around here. And maybe you could have even done it to like where you had this plot line like where Thor just, because they didn't really play into that. Like what they played into like was Thor was stuck here, and Thor, you know what they could have done instead. I mean, because Thor was stuck here, right? And Thor wanted to get back to Asgard to fight off Hela. Like that was his whole motivation. And instead, what you could have done, which would have been great, is just have Thor make this place feel like his home now. Like he's just given up. Give us one of those with Thor. And then I would have felt like incredibly, like, much more attached to everything that was going on in Sakaar in the first place. If Thor had been like, well, I'm not going back home, you know what I mean? But really, Thor's like being a buffoon throughout this whole thing. And that's another one of my problems here is the fact that, to me, Thor's not a buffoon. He's naive. And that creates a lot of his comedy, but he's being a buffoon throughout some of this movie here. And it really does bother me a little bit because that's why when he came down with the Stormbreaker in Infinity War, I got so excited because I was like, that's bringing so much respect back into this character. You know what I mean? And like Taika just seemed to miss that a little bit. Not that he doesn't give him cool shit to do. He does. Like there's some cool shit that Thor does in this movie. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. And to Taika's credit, he made Thor funnier, and I'm perfectly fine with that because Chris Hemsworth is so good at comedy. He's so great when you give him the comedic. He has comedic chops for sure. That's where he belongs. So I'm okay with that, and I'm glad Taika did all that. But there was moments of buffoonery that they gave Thor that I just felt, wasn't Thor. You know what I mean? It's like, I like when you play like naiveness with Thor. Like when Thor's naive, he's great, but when you make him a complete buffoon, sometimes it gets a little bit under my skin, because it's like, you're downgrading that character now, you know?
Right.
And sometimes this movie tends to do that. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I feel like the Sakaar situation is one of those times where they just like, Taika just, I just felt like, I don't know, he just, I understand. Sometimes Taika can't get it out of the way of himself, I feel like, when it comes to the comedy. Like, he's like, if it gets a laugh in this movie, I'm going for it, you know, despite what it takes. I want to get the laugh. And it's like, sometimes you just need to get out of the way of yourself, you know, and like actually like look at what makes most sense for the story. And sometimes, and in this movie, sometimes you just can't do that, you know. Anyway, I'm sorry, but the fight was great. We can move on.
Let me see. So after this, we have kind of horror. That's their ship name, Thor and Hulk. I tried to say Thor and Hulk. Hor is their ship name. Thor and Hulk then awaken. This sounds even more like them shipping them together. They wake up in the same room together, post battle, and have that whole conversation and try to, you know, recruit Valkyrie, try to figure out that whole thing. And then I kind of want to get into when Thor then escapes and gets onto the Quinjet, and we have Thor go back into Bruce Banner. I really enjoyed these parts. I love the de-escalation of Hulk when he sees Natasha on the thing, and I just love that whole moment. I love that he like has to wear Tony Stark's clothes. Like, it's great. This moment.
No, I agree. I like the Thor Hulk dynamic.
I'm gonna be right back, by the way. Sorry.
All right. So the Thor Hulk dynamic, really good. Really funny stuff. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I mean, the part where I'll have to talk to Samee about this when she gets back. But their dialogue was great. I was okay with them making Hulk talk. I was like, actually, out in my mind, I was like, it's about time you make the Hulk talk. You know, because it really did add this whole layer of comedy that I really enjoyed. I love the Tessa Thompson thing too, where he's like, stay, you know, please. Like that joke was great. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. So dug that entirely, like really did. So, you know, that stuff was just absolutely incredible. And it's finally like, the other thing I really like about this, and I'll give some credit to Taika, is like we're finally getting a Hulk story, you know, for the first time. We're getting a story that's a little bit more Hulk-centric, and it's actually really good, like that aspect of it. And yeah, it was really kind of like, there was almost something adorable about Thor and Hulk in this movie, and I think it's some of the highlights as far as the humor goes. I think where I kind of draw the line for this, though, is did I need so much of it? Because sometimes it does definitely feel overloaded in this whole like story arc with humor between Bruce and Thor. It definitely does. It's like Taika just like put his foot on the gas and could not stop for like a good long while when it came to the humor, and sometimes it's like, I don't need that much. But it's not that the jokes didn't necessarily land either, you know? So it's kind of a weird mix that I have in my mind where it's like, I feel like it might have been overload. I feel like maybe we wasted a little bit of time, because the movie runs like 2 hours and 11 minutes. And for like a Marvel film that's like, for the most part, kind of in a way supposed to be a little bit throwaway, it didn't need to run that long. It is kind of like the throwaway sort of comedic Marvel action movie. And it didn't need to run that long. You know, I think that's kind of where I find problems. Or maybe take out some of the humor in the beginning and replace it for the Thor Banner stuff, but maybe pace the humor out a little bit better. I don't know what it needed, but for whatever reason, it kind of threw the pacing off in the movie too. Along with being a little bit more... some of the funnier stuff, I should say. And there's some, you know, stuff with Bruce that I really love as well. You know, because Bruce is book smart, but he's kind of a buffoon when it comes to his common sense, and that's what I really dug about the Bruce Banner aspect. I think that actually really works well for Ruffalo. But now that Samee's back, let me go back in time a little bit, because I wanted to ask you about this one moment and what you thought of it. Because there's that part where Hulk's doing the Thor like fire, Hulk like raging fire, you know, that whole scene, which is great, by the way. I love that. I was telling the folks at home. But yeah, I really like the comedy between the two of them. My nitpick with it was that sometimes it feels a little overloaded, but like I actually, at least the jokes are landing for the most part. But anyway, going back though, when Hulk was doing that thing and then like Thor laughs, do you think that was a laugh from Chris Hemsworth that like he just kept? Or
Probably.
I think it was, yeah. Like Chris Hemsworth was laughing and he just kept it in the moment, because I actually think that was like that moment great. It was a great moment where he did that laugh. It was like that added so much to that, you know. It made it feel more human, you know, the comedy that was going on there. Oh yeah. Hulk gets up and he's naked. That was great. And Thor's like, I'll never get that
Hulk
out
in
of
a
my
hot
head.
tub.
Yeah. That was a really funny scene. So a lot of that stuff I like, and then I also highlighted the stay, please. that was great. Love that one. That was good. And you know what's great about this, and I'll kind of give you the floor from here, is the fact that we're finally getting a Hulk-centric story in the MCU since The Incredible Hulk, and I respect that a lot. I was happy to see that finally. So there's a highlight for you, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just upset it had to be in a Thor movie, you know, I guess more than anything. It's like, oh, come on. Give him his own film already. But I was happy it was a little more Hulk-centric.
Because this is one of Ruffalo's, like, best performances as Hulk, I do have to say.
For sure. And this gave the Ruffalo character a lot more. And what I was telling the audience is, like, they added a layer of buffoonery to Bruce, but it was good in his case. You know what I mean? Because with him, it made sense, because he still has the book smarts and everything, but he's kind of a buffoon when it comes to his common sense a little bit. And that, I feel like, is so true of a lot of very, like, genius type people that you meet on the street. You know, people who are, you know, going to college to be engineers and stuff. It's so true. They just have this.
You throw them in a real world situation and they're like, wait, what? I don't know what to do.
And so that aspect of buffoonery I thought was nailed. It was perfect. I agree. Anyway, go ahead. What were you going to say about the stuff?
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, I think this is Ruffalo's best performance as Hulk. I don't know, man. Endgame was pretty good, but it's up
I like
there.
Infinity War personally. That's my favorite one.
Infinity War, he's good too. I agree.
To Taika's credit,
it was such a
Infinity War took what was set up here and expanded on it, though. To Taika's credit,
exactly. Yeah, I really think because again, like I remember the one Marvel movie I haven't seen is The Incredible Hulk. I know, don't kill me, but so it was great still movie, good to be able to opinion. Because I never really because I think I had the thing of like, well, it's a different actor, so if I get attached to him, it's just not going to matter later on. But then you get but then you get this movie where you get fully attached to Ruffalo's Hulk, which I just love. I think he's perfect in that role.
He's great. Yeah.
So let me see. So after this, we have a little bit. We find out Heimdall is leading a resistance on Asgard, and Hela's trying to take over consistently. She wakes up her like undead army, her big like wolf thing. All that happens, and then we have and then eventually Valkyrie and Loki get tasked with fighting Thor and Hulk. Which, Valkyrie just kicks Loki's ass, ties him up, goes finds him, brings him back. And then we kind of start this whole team up part. I feel like we're getting into like Act 3 now after they escape from Sakaar. So I'll stop there. Everything before escaping Sakaar, before we get back to Asgard. I really I don't have that many issues with it. What do you got?
No, Loki is another one of the highlights in this movie, by the way. Like in general, he's so good in this movie. He always is. Really, you're not wrong. He's one of the characters that they've kept very consistent on in terms of his characteristics and personality. He's remained very consistent, and because he's always kind of had this humorous element to him, he fits right in when it comes to this movie. He really does. He fits into the tone, and he really he advances at the vision that Taika was trying to do here. And I honestly, I know you expect me to say but here, but I really don't have a but. This
Yay,
is the
nice.
one time, like, because like, and genuinely, the escaping Sakaar was really good stuff. I mean,
I agree. Oh my gosh, the whole thing of like, it's my birthday.
that was
And
funny.
the
Yeah,
fireworks going off. I love it.
that was a funny one.
Yeah.
And then you know, of course, like the Jeff Goldblum element, I'm not so high on this, but for the most part, I really do enjoy like the action that's happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the best shot action is in this stuff. When Valkyrie and
Really
Loki get into that fight, that was a really well shot action sequence.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then when you
which real quick, to interrupt you real quick, I saw this on I think a TikTok or Twitter or something, but then when watching Thor Ragnarok, I was like, holy shit, they're right. So again, spoilers for the Loki series. Right. So far, we're up to episode 4. But so it's been said that so Sylvie, the Loki variant, is able to tap into people's memories, but she can't like create a memory. She just shows them a memory that they already have. And Loki's like, oh, that's so weird. I've never been able to do that. And then he does it with Valkyrie. He does the same thing Sylvie does, like touches her head and shows her a memory. So I don't know, man. I also saw a thing that said like technically. Yes,
so
but
it makes sense,
right? It would make sense, yeah.
So you hadn't done that before in the Loki show.
That's true. You know what? Actually, you know what? Never mind. You're right. That is true. I keep forgetting. This is the big thing, that this is Avengers Loki. This is not Endgame Loki.
So it still makes sense.
You're correct.
It works.
Whoop! There it is. You're correct.
Yep. Anyway,
there was another thing to forget. Oh, the fact. It also reminded me the fact that someone pointed out that like, so if magic really doesn't work in the TVA, shouldn't Loki be appearing as like a frost giant? Technically, because that's technically like a glamour he does, and if his magic doesn't work there, it shouldn't be working. I don't know. Food for thought.
Sure.
Yeah. Let me see. So after this, then they get back.
Can I say fun fact that has nothing to do with this movie really quick? Absolutely. Since you were naming off fun facts. Nothing to do with this movie. But I saw a TikTok recently. This was sent to me by somebody else, and I was surprised it wasn't sent to me by you. So Professor Snape in Azkaban, this is a quick little tidbit. Professor Snape in Azkaban, when he says, turn to page 309, or 900, what is it?
394.
394.
Yeah.
Have you ever made that connection?
No, 394? Something happened in 94?
Platform 9 3/4. 394.
Oh, 394.
Somebody made it.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't either. Nice. It blew my mind. Anyway, let's continue on the topic at hand, but I just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, we're back on Asgard.
Back on Asgard.
The whole crew is here. Yeah. I also just remembered. I was thinking. I was like, I feel like I was forgetting something in between there. But I love the moment. In the I don't know if we talked about it, but the elevator moment with Thor and Loki.
Yes.
Where Thor's like, you meant the world to me. I thought the world of you, Loki. Like that, and then they do get help afterwards, which I still think is hilarious.
That's funny.
Like that's fucking funny.
Let's do get help.
That will always.
He's
be funny.
So excited to do it, and Loki doesn't want to do it. It's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
It's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. I think like I've seen like the actors at Disneyland be like, people have asked them to do help, and obviously they can't. They're not just going to throw each other across the room. But oh my god,
this was great. I'll tell you why. Because in this moment, Thor's ahead of Loki.
Exactly,
and I love that, because then it's like, okay, thank you. You're not making him a complete buffoon throughout this entire film. You finally gave him a little bit of the intelligence that he's had in the past. So at least you had that.
Right. That moment is kind of their whole relationship, you know, where 100%. Like they have respect for each other. They do love each other. They are each other's brothers, but also they can't not be who they are, you know, and they know that about each other. And that's that they work around it, and that's how their relationship works. Yeah, that is a microcosm for their whole relationship. I love that moment.
I agree.
So we get back, and we are confronting Hela. We are getting people off of Asgard onto the ship, and we are fighting this dog thing. I think let's talk about this entire ending. Obviously, we talked before about the immigrant song placement. This is the superb placement. This is where, if it only needed to be in one place, this is where it should have been, for sure.
Yeah.
I just love it. I refer to it as kind of So I was watching with my mom last night, and she was like, well, there's a lot of fighting going on. And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of, I think about it as like the Lord of the Rings effect, like the Lord of the Rings ending, where the whole movie you're talking about different tensions between different people. And then at the end, they all fight, but then it all accumulates together.
Yeah.
That's it. And I, big fan of that ending. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have that many bad things to say. I like how everybody gets their cool action moment. Loki, Valkyrie, Thor, everybody has a moment to shine. I love it. I think they all work together really well. I love how they have to bring Ragnarok on in order to defeat Hela in that whole moment. I love when Loki like looks at the Tesseract and takes it. Like I love this point to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I really love.
Yeah, so this is the best part in the whole movie, in my opinion. It's one
I agree.
of
the Bifrost fight, for sure.
As many problems as I've had with this film up until this point, this is one of the best action sequences in all the MCU. Easily. And the Immigrant Song, it works. It's a visually great action sequence. It is shot well throughout. Taika's firing on all cylinders behind the camera there. He's really working it. I mean, honestly, he's showing us what he's capable of as an action filmmaker on top of being a comedic one, and it really fucking works. And the whole thing, the whole battle is great. It's my favorite part of the movie. I have again so many problems leading up to it, but I love this scene. This whole sequence, it's so good. I mean, when Ruffalo, by the way, when he does the thing where he's he jumps and then it's just like you expect it to be the Hulk and it's just he falls flat on his face.
It's the funniest falling to the way it's so funny. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean,
just a little like plop.
Taika, without a doubt, loves his trip and fall jokes, but this is probably the best one. It's probably the best one for sure. He uses them quite a bit, but this one worked the best of all of them, I would say.
And then the actual reveal, like when he does turn into Hulk, I think is so cool because again, like that could be a little cheated because 2 seconds later he does turn into the Hulk. It was just like, but that's even funnier. Like it was just he's about 2 seconds too late.
Yeah.
But then the actual reveal is so cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
It was great. It was phenomenal. Yeah. For sure. And you know, as much as I love all this, and I do, right? My final but. The ending of this movie is so flat, if you ask me. It just ends in such a flat way, if you ask me. I do not like it as an ending to an MCU film. I think it's just one of the flattest endings out there. And you know, it's like I understand that this movie was kind of being made to be this sort of comedic throwaway type thing before we get to the real intense shit that happens later. Even though there's some
in the post-credit scene.
Sure, and even though there's some significance in this movie, don't get me wrong, because there's character development throughout the film. It needs to be in the MCU because you have the whole thing with Banner, and it really does add a freshness to Thor and Bruce, you know, in this movie, and it throws in Valkyrie, and there's importance to this. So I'm not saying it's a complete throwaway, but for the most part, it's the throwaway comedic sort of Marvel film.
I understand what you mean when you say that. You're not wrong.
Which could be fine too. Don't get me wrong. That could also be fine. Like I consider the Guardians of the Galaxy to also be very comedic, sort of throwaway Marvel movies, but they're so fucking good in my opinion. Like I love those. Yeah. But this ending still felt flat. I just wish we had a little bit more expansion on it. It just I get that, it just feels like we went through all this shit and then okay, goodbye. You know, and then there could have been more to it if you ask me, and it's one of the weaker ones in my opinion. So,
no, I agree because it really just kind of ends like Thor's crowned new king of Asgard, and then it just kind of ends, and they're like, "We're going to Earth, guys."
Yeah.
And it's not even until like the post-credit scene do you really are like, "Holy shit, man! Something's about to go down."
Right.
So I totally get it. I just really like it. I like that it's kind of. That it ends that way, that it's very like, all right, we did mission 1, moving on to the next one. Like, I like that sequencing of movie events. You know,
and even like, you know, to give them a little bit of credit too, they may expect people to just stick around past the credits at that point, so that they were probably like, well, we'll give you the real ending at the in the mid credits. But
yeah,
I still
it's
think
like
that
in Spider-Man Far From Home, like Far From Home, I still am like, are there people who left early and don't actually know how that movie ended? Because if you didn't watch the end credit scene, you don't know how the movie ended.
Yeah, there's always people that leave early for some odd reason these days, but
it shocks me every time.
Yeah, for sure. But
especially on like a Thursday night. I've been to like Thursday night 7 p.m. showings, and people peace out the second the trailers start, and I'm like, who dragged you here? Why are you here? Do you not?
Right.
It's crazy.
But anyway, but that said, I still feel like you should want to wrap your movie up a little bit more poetically, and I don't think that this one did that, unfortunately. As much as I thought the ending battle sequence was great, it was amazing. One of my favorites in the MCU, honestly. As many problems as I had with this movie, it's still, I cannot deny that I can watch that ending sequence about 1 billion times in a row, because it really is that amazing.
It's so cool.
It's definitely the reason you watch this movie, is the final 20 minutes. It is funny I say that about the ending too, because I already feel like the movie, and I was kind of saying this earlier when you left, that because of the overload of humor, it did make the movie go a little overlong, in my opinion. I don't think that there was any reason for this movie to be 2 hours and 11 minutes by any means. Yeah, you could have condensed it quite a bit. By the way, something we missed earlier that we should talk about, because it was just such an amazingly, incredibly well shot scene, is the whole Ella action sequence when she was telling all the troops about the whole history, and then she goes in on them when they don't want to convert, and then
I still remember. Yeah, I still remember being in the theater and being like, holy shit, man, she's destroying them. I was like, she's just taking them out.
Right, that was a positive.
I was like, go Hella, man. I know I'm not supposed to be on her side, but in that moment I was like, hell yeah,
it was badass, and it's so well shot.
Them,
part of it's because it's so well shot. It's just like, wow, it looks so good, and everything about that was really great.
It's set up, I think, really well too, of how it's literally like she's up on the thing, it's just her and this whole army beneath her, and then just wipes them out. It's a good scene overall. I agree.
But I don't know. Anyway, I guess we can start to wrap up if you want.
I'm trying to think of. I can't think of anything else that I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
I love the Thor and Loki relationship. I just love the Thor and Loki relationship. That's probably top 2 favorite things about this movie. Sure. I do love the comedy, even though I do agree it makes the movie a bit long, but I think when it hits, it just really hits for me.
Yeah, there's jokes that are great, for sure. There's jokes that like you need in there, because some of the jokes really hit, and like, but it almost feels like you could tell it was written by a comedian, too, because it's one of those things where you have a stand-up comic just trying out jokes left and right. Not that Taika's a stand-up comic, but he is a comedian by his nature, and you could just tell, because it's like a comic when they try out jokes left and right. It's like he's practicing jokes, and like some of them are going to work, some of them aren't going to work, and then some of them are just going to hit you out of nowhere and just kill. Yeah. And it kind of plays like a stand-up comedy set in that way. You know what I mean? To where it's like, so I get it, because he's a very comedic person, and I understand why he wanted to do that. But in the MCU, a lot of that just doesn't mesh with me. You know what I mean? When I'm watching an MCU film, I just don't need it. I respect him taking chances. I respect how well made this movie was, because there's a lot of things about it that are very well done. Even though there were rocky moments too, and I listed them off. It's the style. He like I said, sometimes he can't get out of the way of himself every so often, and I feel like that's where the movie falters for me, and I feel like he did that a little too much. As much as I like the dynamic, a lot of it was in the Thor and Hulk stuff. A lot of it was there where he just went a little overboard when it came to the jokes and the humor, and it was like, oh man, and a lot of like I said, when we go back to the beginning of it, which is where to me I think it was most bumpy, was in the first act. I think that I kind of can excuse it in a sense, to where he probably wanted to follow up on everything that came before and then get past it and then start telling his own story, and I understand why. But to me, it still felt like he could have tacked on a little bit more in the beginning to expand it. Even though this movie's over long already, maybe I would have respected the runtime if you used some of that to expand upon things that needed to be expanded upon, rather than trying out all these different jokes. But again, when this movie came out, it was such a different beast than any other MCU film we'd ever seen, and I respect him taking chances. To me, this doesn't, like, I guess here's my point. As many problems as I have with this movie, it does not diminish my respect for Taika as a filmmaker. At the end of the day, it increases my respect for him because he did try something new. And I think that a lot of people just need to remember that when it comes to filmmakers trying new things. You know, it's like, this should not diminish your respect that they gave it a shot. You know, even if you didn't end up liking the overall product at the end of the day, you have to recognize that he took a shot. You know, he did, and that's there's something to be said about that. You know, the fact that he did take a shot, and that he is actually a really very capable filmmaker, and a lot of that does still shine through here. He is so capable of doing great things with movies, and
he changed the game a little bit. Like, this was, I mean, a lot of people compared it to Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think it just kind of took it in a new direction. Like, for Thor and Loki, for sure, like, this movie changed the game.
Yeah. And as much as I don't want him to touch Star Wars, because I feel like he's just so much better when he does original stuff, like when he goes off and does like things that aren't IPs, he's much better. I still know he's going to try something new with Star Wars, and I'm at least curious. You know, the curiosity's at least got the better of me with that, and it's like, I'll respect that too. You know, it might not be for me, but I'll respect him trying something new with the franchise. I always respect a filmmaker who comes in to do new things and to mix it up and to, you know, add a level of freshness to it. And by the way, a level of freshness that did pay off overall, because they took what he set up here and expounded upon it, you know, later films. So overall, I mean, Taika's a fucking genius. You know, it doesn't matter what I think of this movie. You know, he's a madman. He could go do whatever he wants, and like, that's because he has taken chances that have paid off for his career. And you know, I don't want to make this the Taika Waititi segment, but we are talking about a Taika film, and I think that there's a lot to be said about this man, because I genuinely want people to understand my problems with this movie don't necessarily have to do with my loving for Taika. You know what I mean? That it enhances my love for Taika, because if he didn't take chances, then this movie would have just been like, a good MCU film to me. But he did take chances, and that's why I'm here. This is why I'm feeling this film is rough, because of his chances that he took. But I'd rather him do that than just, you know, try to make the standard thing. And so luckily he did. Listen, I have high hopes for Love and Thunder still, even though after this it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I have high hopes. I think that it's shaping up to be a pretty cool project from everything I hear. I love the cast: Russell Crowe, Christian Bale. I mean, those are big. Gosh.
Natalie Portman, come on. Which I'm pretty sure. Do you think that is going to be a variant of Thor, or do you think it's going to be legit Jane Foster?
I think it's going to be legit Jane Foster. I think it's going to be legit Jane Foster. Yeah,
because I've thought about that. I'm like, what, you've introduced variants to me now.
Honestly, I feel like Natalie Portman saw Ragnarok and was like, I want to work with Taika.
And was like, I've made a mistake by not being in that movie. Yeah, for sure.
And I think it says a lot about Christian Bale or about Taika Waititi, the fact that Christian Bale and Russell Crowe want to work with this guy. That's because he's killing it. He is an amazing filmmaker.
An Academy Award winner. Yeah.
Yeah. This one didn't work for me, but that's okay. You know, hopefully he takes criticisms not to heart to the point where he makes decisions based on them, but he at least like understands he can maybe reassess himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, you know, like be like, okay, he's either going to listen to criticisms on this movie. Not that it had a lot, because most people do love this one, but he'll either like listen to the people that don't, because I know that there's still a handful of us. Yeah. He'll listen to us that don't, and he'll either go, I think that they make a good point. I can reassess myself on those issues. And then now that I'm watching the film again, I can reassess it. Or he's going to go, fuck him. I'm Taika Waititi, and I want to do my own thing. And either thing he wants to do is fine. All I ask is that he sticks with his guns and he is original. And if he remains that way, I bet you Love and Thunder can get me on board with the Taika Waititi Marvel film, because that'll be the moment that he's, he's probably gonna stick a big fuck you to me, and he's gonna go, listen, man, I'm Taika Waititi. I'll do whatever.
This
the
is
fuck
even
I want.
more improv. This is 3.5 hours long.
And you know what? It might be amazing. It could end up being amazing.
It'd be incredible.
I hope it is. I hope it is. I don't hope for any of these movies to fail. I love Taika, and I want him to succeed in everything. And I'll watch everything he does. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's another MCU movie or another Star Wars, or if I want him to
I'm
do
a fan.
He's Taika Waititi, man. I'll watch him. He's so good. He's a fucking rock star of a director right now, and
he really is.
There's nobody like him. You know,
he's literally. Have you heard about this? I don't know how true this is, but I keep hearing all these rumors that he is in like a polyamorous relationship with Tessa Thompson and Rita Ora, and I'm just like, what a rock star, man. Who else is out here being like, yeah, like, I again wouldn't surprise me. Checks out.
Yeah,
we love this for them. No hate, but it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, what a rock star thing to be like, oh yeah, we're in this relationship. Who cares?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah.
Cool.
You do you, man. Who cares what other people think?
All I remember is from about Taika Waititi is Star Wars Celebration from a few years back, and they did that whole Mandalorian panel, and the moment they announced Taika Waititi, that room fucking exploded. That's all I remember. And that's the thing that always sticks out to me about him, and the fact that it's like he really has made an impact. If like because they announced, I mean, some other big people too, you know, like people who are great, you know, but it's like, if you announce Taika and it's like a fucking rock star walked out on stage,
it's like that,
that, you know, he's made an impact, and like that's awesome to me. He's kind of revolutionizing film again. It just reminds me of like the way that things were with Tarantino and things like that a little bit, you know what I mean? It's just he's
also got like guys. You can just say, think about that too, is like, you can just say like it's a Tarantino movie and you're like, oh okay, most people, that's like all I need to know. I totally got it. Right. I feel like you can do a little, I mean, all of his movies are so different, but you could still be like, it's a Taika Waititi movie, and I'd be like, oh, I know what you mean. I 100% get it. You can compare it to anything and I'd be like, oh yeah, it's so signaturely Taika that you can't mistake it for anything else. There's nothing else like it.
And there's a lot of filmmakers like that, but
totally.
The difference is, I think, with Taika and Quentin Tarantino is it just happens to work for more people. You know, that's the difference. It's Mass not appeal, it's not that like other filmmakers aren't, because there's filmmakers I like better than Taika and Tarantino, you know what I mean, in general. And I see that their body of work feels interconnected and stuff like that. But what they do, and you can't deny, just connects with people more, you know, and overall, and that's something to respect for sure, you know. You can't just like kick that under the rug. You have to look at that and be like, whatever they're doing is working for more people, you know. It's just how it's working, and you know, I think part of it is their personalities and the way that they carry themselves as filmmakers, but
because their personality comes off as like synonymous with their movies, you know what I mean? Like Quentin Tarantino as a person versus the body of work that is a Quentin Tarantino film. They're very similar. They give off same vibe.
Hey, I feel that way about Rian Johnson, but anyway.
For another day, another time.
Yeah, another day, another time.
Another day, another Doug.
Podcast for another time. That's for sure. But listen, I had fun talking about this regardless of how I feel about the film overall. It's a good time. So I mean, there's good fun to be had with this movie, and there's highlights and negatives, and it was a good time. I'm glad I was here for this.
Hell yeah. Nice. Well, I'm glad you at least have like the appreciation for it. That if nothing else, I'm like, at least you appreciate it.
It's an incredibly well-made movie. Like, I hate to break it to you folks, but sometimes shit that's incredibly well-made is just not going to work for you. Right. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, every so often you're going to get something like this. It's not for you sometimes. Sometimes it's just not. And this is one of those situations. It's just Taika's style for me did not mesh with the MCU. But I do recognize that his style is all over this fucking thing, you know, and it's true. He's an auteur. He really is.
Yes.
Yeah. And
100%.
That's great. And I think he should continue down that path. I don't want him to change anything about the way he makes movies.
Same.
Yeah.
I will ride this takeaway for the next 40, 50
Yeah.
years. Like, I love it. Not gonna get tired of it.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep making movies
All
the
right.
way you do.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. I think that is going to wrap it up on this episode of Movie Night, our Thor Ragnarok discussion.
Yes.
Next week, we're keeping on the Marvel train. We're doing Black Widow. I am very, very excited to see Black Widow and talk about it. That's coming next Monday. But in the meantime, Dom, where can the people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at at Dom underscore Martino I almost forgot my own fucking last name. Bourbon.
Underscore Martino underscore
and then
Dom
on Instagram,
underscore
Dom underscore Martino underscore official. All right, thank you for moving me along. All right.
And you guys can find me on Instagram. I'm at Samee Ramirez 14. Cheers. I am on Twitter at Samee Ramirez and on Stereo at Samee Ramirez, doing shows weekly with Dom over there. And then, next week, again, we're doing Black Widow, so come check that out. And then you can find the Anoraks on Anoraks Official everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, all the places. So with that being said, we're going to head out. Have a great night. Thank you guys for watching.